Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Sally Pinto and I'm from the Yonkers Newark neighborhood naturally occurring retirement community. We launched back in January of 2020 and we're here to serve seniors 60 plus in Northeast Yonkers. We have lots of fun programs and activities, and we also have a lot of resources for you as well. Our programs include meditation chair yoga, body mind fitness, bingo, and any other programs that you might be interested, like arts and gardening. We have our resource specialist, Alexa Smith, who can help you with finding services and activities out there for you, as well as our nurse, Barbara Simone, who can help answer your health-related questions. We're here for you, we're here for our community, and we look forward to seeing you in our programs. Enjoy.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alexa Smith, the resource specialist with the Yonkers Newark. I'm here to help with application assistance, referrals for home delivered meals, and transportation services will be coming soon. We also offer Zoom activities and Zoom programs. And if you have any other questions or concerns, I'm here to help. Thank you so much and enjoy the program.
Welcome. I'm Barbara Simone, registered nurse. I recently retired from Westchester County's Health Department as a public health nurse. I am now here to try to assist you with any medical or preventive care issues. Enjoy this program, and I'm looking forward to working with you.
Again, welcome. My name is Jessica Flores, and I am a community engagement manager and diversity specialist for the Alzheimer's Association Hudson Valley chapter. I've been with the chapter for about 3 years now. I also have a personal connection with the disease. My father transitioned 3 years ago, and he also had Alzheimer's disease. So for me, is a great honor to be able to share this time with you. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Today, we're going to take a look at our effective communication strategies program, and we're going to explore how communication takes place when someone has Alzheimer's disease. And by the end of today's program, you will be able to explain the communication changes that take place throughout the course of the disease, decode the verbal and behavioral messages delivered by someone with dementia, and respond in ways that are helpful to the person. We're also going to identify strategies to help you connect and communicate at each stage of the disease. Communication is more than just talking and listening, right? It's also about sending and receiving messages through attitude, tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language. Communication is a way to express who we are and how we relate to each other. As the brain changes with Alzheimer's disease progression, people lose the ability to speak and decode language in the usual ways. And so the better we understand these changes, the better we can connect with people with Alzheimer's throughout the course of the disease. Next slide. And as Alzheimer's disease and other dementia progresses, people lose their ability to communicate their thoughts and feelings through words. They also lose the ability to understand the words that others are speaking to them. However, they do maintain a sense of self throughout all the stages of the disease. So this means that elements of those characteristics that makes the person unique will remain a part of the person throughout the disease. And connecting with the person's self is key to have an effective communication, right? Staying connected and giving them their voice as their disease progresses through these stages. So in the early stage of the disease, there may be just a few noticeable changes in the person's ability to communicate with words or there may be no recognizable changes at all. Asking the person how he or she would like to be helped with words can be useful in the early stage. Right? So language abilities diminish as the disease progresses, and communication moves from easy conversation to relying on emotions and the 5 senses to connect. And if you're a care partner or a caregiver, you are the ones who will adjust the ways you communicate and maintain connections with them throughout the disease, right? We need to remember that the essence of the person continues. We need to respect the person as the adult he or she is, and adjust our communication based on what is meaningful to the person today, no matter what the stage. In the early stage, you may or may not see changes in the way the person communicates. For some people, there may be some shifts in their ease with words or conversations. Some of the most common changes you may notice in the early stages are listed on the slide, and they include difficulty finding the right words, taking longer to speak or respond, withdrawing from conversations, struggling with decision-making or problem solving, reacting more emotionally than in the past, or avoiding discussion of the disease and its impact. Whether you notice changes in the way the person speaks or not, communication in the early stage is crucial. This is a period in which everyone involved is adjusting to the diagnosis and is having thoughts and feelings about the changes ahead of them. Remember that denial is a part of the disease for some, while for others, emotions can feel extremely overwhelming. So come to terms with the diagnosis and the emotions you are feeling by talking together and expressing your connection. And this will help both accept the diagnosis, the caregiver, and the person with the disease move forward and discover new ways to live positive, fulfilling lives together. Communicating throughout this process can also bring closeness that will help everyone adjust more easily as the disease progresses. In our first video, Martha Tierney is an Associate Director of Volunteer Research Programs for the Alzheimer's Association's National Office, and she's going to tell us about how to be helpful in the early stage.
Communicating in the early stages of dementia with the person with the disease is important. At that time, you still have language as a tool, so you can learn things about what they might prefer as the disease progresses. For example, as the disease progresses, a person might have difficulty finding words. Caregivers often struggle to know what to do in that moment. Early on in the disease, you can ask. You can say, you know, if you ever have trouble coming up with a word, would you rather that I jump in and give you the word, or do you want me to wait and allow you some time so you can find it on your own?
Caregivers may struggle to know how to help the person with communication in the early stage. And like it's mentioned on the video, you can ask the person directly how to help. Asking the person for his or her preference shows that you want to help while being respectful of the person's feelings. One of the best ways to be sure that you're offering the help with communication that the person needs is to ask directly. For example, if a person struggles to find the right word, ask whether it feels better when you supply the word or when you wait patiently. You want to keep your sentences direct and straightforward to help the person avoid feeling lost in a conversation. Short sentences can make your meaning clear, right? So we want to avoid long explanations and take your cue from the person, taking care not to talk down to him or her. And it may take the person longer to find the words or put thoughts together and express them. So be sure to allow extra time for conversations so no one feels pressured or rushed. Keep in mind that conversational needs will change over time. And in the early stage, the person with dementia needs to have his or her voice heard. And you can also help facilitate this when you meet the person right where they are at that moment, regardless of the stage of the disease. So be sure to include the person in any conversation in the early stage if he or she wishes, especially those that will have an effect on his or her future. Including the person can be empowering, engaging, and can allow them to have their preferences respected. Other key points to include and keep in mind is to don't make assumptions about a person's ability to communicate because of an Alzheimer's diagnosis, because the disease is very unique to each individual and it affects each person differently. You want to speak directly to the person if you want to know how they are doing. Explore which method of communication is most comfortable for the person. And this could include letters, email, phone calls, or in-person conversations. And it's okay to laugh. Sometimes humor lightens the mood and makes communication a bit easier. Be honest and frank about your feelings. Don't pull away. Your friendship and support are important to the person with dementia. Many changes in the middle stage of Alzheimer's affect communication. So if you notice some of these changes in the early stage, they are likely to become more pronounced in the middle stage. And some of the changes that you may notice are listed in the slide, and they are increased difficulty finding the right words, using familiar words repeatedly, inventing new words to describe familiar things. For example, such as calling a watch a hand clock. Easily losing train of thought, speaking less often, communicating through behavior rather than words more often. And some others include difficulty organizing words logically, or reverting to speaking in a native language. So people who speak multiple languages may have a harder time as their brain begins to change, as they have two vocabulary sets to go look in when they're trying to find a word and communicate. So if you are a care partner of a person who has English as a second language, you may benefit from relying and integrating objects into your communication, not just words, right? So relying on gestures instead of speaking, some people may curse, right? You may see that behavior, if they never did it before, the disease that may be a result of the disease. Difficulty following a conversation or a TV program, difficulty decoding what other people are saying. Changes in the brain make tracking and decoding words more difficult. For that reason, people begin to use their behavior to communicate more often in the middle stage of the disease. So next, we're going to discuss the adjustments you can make that help you continue to connect with the person with Alzheimer's. And please note that some physical conditions and medications can affect a person's ability to communicate. If changes occur suddenly and dramatically, please consult with a doctor. There may be a medical issue that needs to be addressed right away, such as a urinary tract infection, or it could be a side effect to any medication. In our next video, Beverly shares advice she gives to caregivers as a support group facilitator.
I would advise couples, and I usually do advise the caregiver who comes to the group and is caring for a spouse, that you take your time. Always count to 3 before you respond, because it gives you time to think about your answer and what's going on. Generally, in a marital dispute, it's quick. It's back and forth. You're quick to give an answer. When they've been diagnosed, to sit back and say, okay, you're supposed to be the one that's reasonable here. Let's change how we do this, because there's only one thing you can control, and that's you. You cannot control them and their process.
Mhm. So like Beverly mentioned, you want to take your time when responding to someone with dementia. You cannot expect a person with the disease to behave as they might have in the past with a reasonable response, right? So if a communication of yours isn't getting the desired response, focus on what you can change and what you're doing to alter the situation. When communicating with a person in the middle stages, approach the person gently. Identify yourself and approach the person from the front and at eye level. Call the person by name and say who you are in relation to them. For example, hi Dad, it's your daughter Sue. This will help orient the person and get his or her attention. Sometimes using touch can show that you care even when your words are just about a task or are not understood. So a gentle touch can also help get a person's attention, right? Some people shy away from being touched, but most find a gentle touch reassuring. You don't want to criticize or correct or impose your perspective because it will backfire most of the time. You want to pay attention to your facial expression and your tone of voice. You want to be calm and patient because the person can feel either your tension or your patient understanding, right? So you want to think about how you're presenting yourself. Are you tense? Are you frowning? Are you being bossy or controlling? Remember, people with dementia are often extremely aware of nonverbal signals such as facial expressions, body tension, mood. So if you're angry or tense, they are likely to become angry, anxious, or annoyed. So take the time to communicate, right? Give yourself and the person you're talking with enough time to respond, interact, and connect. In the next video, Rebecca talks about adjusting her own thoughts and responses when her mother repeated herself.
She could sense my frustration because occasionally I would lose my patience and I would bark at her. Why are you asking me that question again? I just answered that question 2 minutes ago. And then she would get frustrated because, you know, she was very old school and she's like, don't disrespect me. And I didn't ask you that question 2 minutes ago. It's a new question. So phase 2 of our relationship was like, okay, that's a new question. I'll answer it again.
And, you know, if you, you know, through my personal connection, I know this all too well, right? So if you are also a caregiver for someone that has Alzheimer's disease or another type of dementia, you know that it can be frustrating when someone with dementia repeats questions, statements, or behavior, right? So rather than trying to convince the person of what you remember happening, it helps to accept that the person does not remember it as you do. We want to accept their perspective and respond from that standpoint. So that's extremely important. When you join the person's reality, you take a little time to see the world as he or she may be seeing it right at that moment. So when seen from his her perspective, the person's behavior can often become understandable to you. Due to the changes to the brain that accompany the disease, the person will probably not be able to see your perspective. So you will be the one who will need to use respect and empathy to see the world through their eyes. Joining the person's reality is key in helping the person have his or her say, and it provides soothing and reassurance. So to do this, you can take the steps listed on the slide. Right? Listen to figure out what the person wants or needs. So this means paying attention to both the words and the behavior of the person. You want to keep in mind that the person may be saying something about his or her feelings or needs, but may be feeling something else on a deeper level that also needs attention from you. For example, the words, "I can still drive just fine," may also contain the feeling, "I don't want to give up my independence, so don't take that from me." The words, "Stop taking over my life, I hate it," may actually reflect the meaning, "I hate this disease and I don't understand why I can't do what I always could." So let the person know you understand what he or she may be feeling and why, whether they are expressed through words, behavior, or both. Answer any question or address any issue he or she may bring up, and you want to be brief and to the point. Then, most importantly, respond to the emotions behind the behavior or the concern. For example, if the person is communicating with words, you might say, "You seem sad. Do you feel sad?" And then wait for a response. If the person says yes, you may want to guess the cause, as in, "Do you miss the way things used to be?" If the person says yes to this as well, you could add, "I do too." If the person is communicating with behavior, see if you can identify and speak about the emotion behind the behavior. If the person is rummaging through processions, it may be a way of communicating boredom or needing something. Hitting during bathing can be a way to say that the person feels too hot or too cold or uncomfortable with being naked or feeling out of control. So finally, only after you've responded to the emotions, reassure and redirect the person by encouraging them to do something that may shift the person's thinking or behavior, right? So to continue the example, you could say, "I'm glad to be here with you today. Let's go for a walk outside." This way, you're gradually moving the person from feeling sad to doing something active that can lift their spirits. And you want to keep it slow and basic, right? You take your time and be patient when you communicate. The more you slow down, the less resistance you will encounter because the person won't feel rushed and unable to keep the pace. Rushing leaves the person feeling frustrated, inadequate, upset with themselves, and then resistant. By taking your time, you will avoid frustration for everyone, right? So again, you want to use short sentences, basic words, and speak clearly. You want to be specific. It sometimes helps to offer the choice you think best at the end of the sentence. For example, rather than asking, "What would you like for breakfast?" you could say, "It's breakfast time. Would you like eggs or oatmeal?" Right? So you're giving them the choice, right? So it becomes a bit easier. You want to give multiple cues. It's helpful to give the person many different cues as you communicate. This reinforces your words and clarifies your message. Provide visual cues and gestures, avoiding sudden movement. Use gentle gestures and pointing, but avoid making sudden gestures that may startle the person. You want to write things down for the person. Reminder notes, calendar, labels, and lists can remind the person of where things belong, what is to be done, or who is who in the person's life. Perhaps labeled photos can help the person keep track of names and relationships in the middle stage. You want to offer answers in your questions. It's much easier for someone in the middle stage to choose what to eat for lunch. For example, if the question is not open-ended, right? So what would you like for lunch? Is a question that may leave the person overwhelmed and stuck for an answer. And this often leads to confusion, or easiest of all, a refusal, right? They will refuse to eat because they just can't think of a word. So it's much easier for the person to answer the question phrased this way. I'm making sandwiches for lunch. Would you like ham or turkey? The person can choose one or the other and will often choose the last option mentioned. If they seem stuck, you can suggest an answer such as, how about ham? You want to repeat information or questions. Although you may have had many reminders in place, plan on needing to repeat information you provide or questions you ask. The person may not have been able to decode your message completely the first time, and repetition can help. You want to turn negatives into positives, right? So for example, if you need to get the person into the shower and they always resist the task, rather than saying it's time for your shower, which may trigger resistance, you can say, let's go get you cleaned up for the day so you'll be ready for Cindy's visit in the afternoon, right? So you want to pair with something that they will look forward to. I know in my personal experience for my father, it was quite challenging to get him to a doctor's appointment. And so the more we learned how to communicate with him due to the disease, my mom was his primary caregiver. So instead of saying, Benjamin, you have a doctor's appointment, she will say, hey, we have a doctor's appointment today. And after that, we can go grab lunch, right? So she will pair it with something that he will look forward to. So avoid quizzing the person, asking them to try harder to remember, or saying that they know the answer and asking the person to think again is unfair and it will never work. Trying harder just leads to frustration. It is much more respectful and helpful to give the person the information they need for a task or situation, along with the reminders needed. And you want to respond empathetically and reassure, right? You want to let the person know that you are there and you're listening, that you hear their concerns. The facts are far less important than the person's feelings and his or her view of reality. So these feelings and perspectives are very real to the person, even though they may not match your reality. So responding to those feelings first can help avoid resistance. And you want to provide reassurance. Let them know that you're there to support them, that they're safe, that you're there to help. Let the person know that you hear and understand the thoughts and feelings that they may be experiencing. As long as there is no safety issue, agree and go with the flow, finding common ground whenever possible. And you can make any adjustments to the situation as necessary, and then redirect a person to another activity if needed. In the late stage, the person may only use a few words, but they still need to connect and communicate, right? So since the person has lost many functions by the late stage, you may feel a strong urge to do something. And usually your presence and connection with the person are much more important than doing something specific for the person. Remember that the person is an adult with a sense of self that continues throughout the stages. And you can connect with those aspects of the self by remembering the person's history and respecting their preferences, right? So the goal is to help the person feel content and happy wherever possible. You want to keep talking. You want to use familiar words, names, phrases, poems, passages, or songs, whether you get a direct response from the person or not. The sound of your voice helps maintain the connection between the two of you. So remember, using the 5 senses in the last stage is a great way to connect with the person with dementia. So this could be done through touch, sight, sound, smell, or taste. In this video, Sandra talks about connecting with her mother in the late stage of the disease.
I know that my mom feels aggravated. I know that she feels alone. I know that she feels confused. And I know on any given day, I don't know if I've made it better for her. I try. In these later stages, I've come to recognize that being really aware of the five senses is really important. Touch seems to give her a great deal of comfort. I know when I come over, I'm going to brush her hair all the time. And my husband noted to me recently, he said, you know, you should see the look on your mom's face when you're brushing her hair. She's just happy. She's just happy. She doesn't say a lot. And I do it for a long period of time. I comb it, I braid it, I do funny things with it, but it just allows me to just be with her in a way that makes her feel comfortable.
Mhm. So here are some ideas for connecting through touch. You can feel different fabrics, identify shapes by touch, lotion hand massages, identifying everyday items in a bag by touch, visiting with animals, molding non-toxic clay or dough. And you can hold a person's hand or stroke his or her arm or back. This may be the most powerful way to connect non-verbally. And here are some ways to connect through the use of sight. You can laminate brightly colored pictures to look at together. You can watch videos of animals, nature, travel, look at photo albums together, view photos of famous paintings, favorite settings, or prominent people from the past, watch birds or look at aquariums, paint with watercolors, go outdoors or sit by an open window together to experience the environment together using many of the senses, right? Like feeling the sunshine, seeing people and pets walk by, hearing nature sounds, feeling the breeze, or smelling a coming rain shower. It can all be very beneficial. Using sounds and music are some of the most powerful ways to connect in the late stage, right? So you want to listen to familiar music, including favorite musical styles that may stir happy moments, right? So it depends all on the preferences of the person. So you may want to dig on the person's history and know their favorite music. It could be jazz, big band dance music, classical pieces. Listen to recordings of the sounds of nature, farms, cities, animals, or babies. Identify musical instruments by sound. You can listen to songs or speeches in the person's native language. That's extremely important. You want to read books, poetry, scripture, or newspaper articles. And let the person hear the gentle tone of your voice. The sense of smell is one of our most basic senses, and although this sense may diminish with age and disease progression, consider using some of the ideas on the slide to connect with the person, right? You can make small plastic bags that can contain herbs or spices, cotton balls dipped in essential oils. It could be grass clippings or fragrant flowers, teas, or coffee beans. I know for me personally, it would be coffee beans, right? But you also want to keep in mind if the person has any allergies to any scents, right? To avoid them. And that's extremely important to keep in mind as well. Well into the late stage, people with dementia enjoy tasting their favorite foods and flavors. And here are some ways that you might provide some strong flavor sensations for the person. However, as the ability to swallow diminishes, choking does become a hazard. So be sure to provide only what the person can swallow safely. And some of them are favorite foods, home-baked goodies, popsicles, flavored drinks, ice creams, and puddings. I know my dad enjoyed a small piece of chocolate. He will enjoy that very much. So to summarize, maximizing our communication or connectedness with a person with dementia involves adhering to a few principles, right? You want to understand what is and isn't possible to change by understanding all you can about the disease, right? So being here today is a great way to do that. So stay up to date with the latest information and scientific breakthroughs on Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia. You can know and accept the cognitive and functional limitations of the person to help you set realistic expectations of that person. You want to remember that the person is an adult with a sense of self and that they should always be respected. Remember to use feelings to connect. You convey your mood through your actions and your tone of voice. The person will pick up and reflect on those feelings. So you want to stay focused on your positive feelings for the person to increase your understanding of their reality. And you want to demonstrate your caring to the person to help you connect, right? You want to listen, observe, and try to decode what the person is communicating about his or her needs and wants. And by joining the person's reality, you can better understand what is needed and how to intervene. Communication evolves throughout the stages of Alzheimer's, and adapting to those changes requires a commitment, right? And sadly, we can't sugarcoat it. It's a long, hard journey, and it requires a lot of commitment. So by adjusting your communication as the disease progresses, you can learn to connect deeply and meaningfully, enhancing your relationship with each other. In the next video, Dr. Sam Fazio is the Director of Special Projects for the Alzheimer's Association National Office, and he describes the multiple effects of not caring for yourself as a caregiver.
Taking care of yourself while you care for somebody with the disease not only impacts your own health, but it really can impact the person with the disease. So for example, if you're not getting enough sleep, you might be easily irritated, which will then sort of spill over to your interactions with the person with the disease and maybe being short with them, which then might cause them to get frustrated. So it's not only important to take care of yourself for your own health, but really for you to really be a good caregiver.
All right, so caring for yourself, if you are caring for someone with the disease, is extremely important. As we all are familiar, it is extremely overwhelming disease, not only for the person that has Alzheimer's disease or another type of dementia, but also for the caregiver, right? So taking care of yourself, it's okay to ask for help. There are resources available. We're going to share those resources at the end of the program. So it's extremely important to become familiar with them. So that way we know what resources are available, what we can utilize, and not wait for a crisis to happen, right? So it's extremely important that we know that. So no matter whether you want information or support, whether you have questions about memory loss or dementia of any kind, or whether you are a professional, a researcher, a caregiver, or a person diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia, the Alzheimer's Association has resources for you, and we are available to help. So you can visit our website, alz.org, and you can find our Alzheimer's Navigator, Community Resource Finder. We have a caregiver center, a safety center. We have our 24/7 helpline, which is available all day, every day. And we have licensed professionals that will respond to that call. So you can call at 3 a.m., with a crisis or trying to find some type of support, and you will find that support, right? But we don't want you to wait for a crisis. We want you to call the helpline, find the resources available to you. All you have to do is just give your location and they will let you know what resources are available. So through the Community Resource Finder, you can also find other community partners and other resources provided by other organizations near you. So that's a valuable tool that you can find on alz.org. And you can always go to our training, alz.org, and you can find free educational programs available that you could take at your own pace, at your own time. But you can also call our 24/7 helpline and find out any other training that may be going on in your area. All our services are free, so we encourage you to please utilize them. And I am going to point out our 24/7 helpline, which is 1-800-272 3900. So I will make sure to put all this information in the chat as well.
Hi, everyone. This is Z from Yonkers Public Library. Thanks so much to Sally Pinto and Alexis and Barbara from Newark. Thank you to our community partners, WJCS, the City of Yonkers Office for the Aging, Westchester County Legislator Ruth Walter, Friends of Crestwood Library, and Yonkers Public Library for making this phenomenal partnership. And we thank each and every one of you for being part of our wellness community. Be well, stay well.